Hello again, Aero Modelers. Well, you'll be glad to know that the final parts of the van are now done. So there'll be no more of these silly videos and we can get back to some aero modelling, and I'm really looking forward to resuming the Chipmunk. I've been doing a lot of thinking as to how to solve a few problems in the meantime, and I think I've come up with a few good ideas that will maybe sort the cowl out, which was a bit of an issue. Anyway, more of that when we come back onto the Chipmunk. But the van, it's done. My last mission was to make some covers. So I've never used a sewing machine before, so that was all good fun and a very steep learning curve, shall we say. But I managed to do it with the thanks of a few YouTube videos that showed me, basically some basic steps. But as you can see, they're not amazing. They're okay. I've done some hidden zips and some piping as well, some yellow piping. I'm not sure whether I like the yellow piping, but it adds a bit of colour and it picks out the yellow in the front, and one of my favourite colours is yellow. So the big cushions that go underneath are the ones that are probably going to be on the van nearly all the time. These little backrest cushions actually are very comfortable, but they dig into your back a little bit, so it's actually quite comfortable to not have any cushions at the back, behind your back. So that's so they might not get used. But the big blue ones on the bottom, I've piped them in two ways, so that when they're this way up you can see the yellow, but if you flip them over you can see blue piping matching the covers, so it's not quite so loud. I'm sorry the video keeps zooming and focusing. It's struggling with me, I think. It's cold out here, that's what it is. So what I wanted to do was just run through what I've done and show you how it looks now that it's all pretty much finished. I think these are always a work in progress, a bit like a scale model. They're never really finished, you just stop working. But in this case I need to now use the van on a few camping trips and stuff like that, just to get a feel for whether or not I've done the layout correctly. As you know from previous stuff that I've put on YouTube, I've redone the table height, so it's now at a perfect height. So as I'm sat at it and my elbows are bent, the table is the height of my arm, my bent arm. So now when I'm typing scores and stuff like that at the end of an event, it's fairly easy to do it. The fridge is sorted out, and the centre bit, and I'll show you all that in a minute. The fridge is up and running, and basically I just turn the fridge on the night before I want to go, stock it up with cold stuff the next morning, go off and do my stuff, come back the next day or day or two later, and the fridge will run for 2 or 3 days before it really impacts the battery, and then I'll just come back and recharge it. If it's a bright weekend, then as you know, I've got the solar panel which I set up outside if it's bright enough, and that keeps the fridge and the leisure battery that's in here topped up quite happily. I haven't carpeted the whole inside, which was the original plan. These things are always a bit fluid and you change your mind as you go along. What I've done is I've fitted these panels. I've made these panels using paper templates and then carpeted the panels. So I've used the grey interior to set this off. Obviously if your van is white then you might not want to do that. You may want to carpet it all just to darken it off, or you may want to have the contrast, I don't know. But anyway, this is how I've done it. The ceiling is all done and all the lights seem to work fine. The edging was a bit fraught, but it's okay. I'm not sure I like the dots, but you'll see them in a little while. So what I was going to show you is just walk around with the camera and you can see the various bits of the vehicle and how I've done it, and it might give you some ideas for model transportation in the future. Okie dokes. Without any more ado, let's have a walk around and see what's what. So here we have the van going in through the side door, and you can see straight away that we've got the panel that shows the current consumption and the battery state, a dimmer control. There's a little panel here with an XT60 that allows me to plug the solar panel in, and then it goes directly across the battery. Or I can plug my charging system in, my suitcase charger, for charging LiPos in the van or just outside the van, on the edge. You can see the cushions, they're all nicely done. They're not been washed yet, so they will shrink a little bit, but saying that, I'm quite happy with the fit. Some hidden zips and pockets and stuff. That's I'm quite happy with that. The table height is now set. I can't remember what I set it to now. I think the original was 700, and I've lowered it to I think 670, something like that. That's perfect for what I'm doing. So you get a feel for it. I've made these panels up and then carpeted them to sort of fill in the bodywork and the frame. The door panels, the door cards are just carpeted. They're the original ones. Around the front we've got storage for the shelves. They sit perfectly like that, and there's a couple of brackets that I've made that hold a bungee cord, which just stops those those modeling trays from moving around, which is perfect. If I just move back a bit, then we've got the fridge unit with a little bit of a splashback, just to protect the back of the seats if you're making sandwiches or whatever. And I was going to put a sink in it, but I've decided I'm going to hold off the sink. This left-hand panel over here is big enough to take a sink, and I can do that later. But to be honest, when I camp, I tend to use a plastic bowl and fill it with hot water from the kettle, and that's quite convenient. So rather than use up that space by making it something else, I think I'll leave it open, and I can just put a bowl on top of there or something like that. But I still need to figure out a way of protecting this wood. So if anybody's got any ideas on a varnish or something like that I can use, that would be great. As far as this cupboard goes, it's a cupboard. Nothing more you can say about it. But in the bottom, I was going to put a crate with kettles, cooker, just various bits and pieces, and maybe a can of water. The top is a drawer which is lined with a bit of carpet, and that's just to if any, that's supposed to be a smooth close, but I think my runners are not smooth enough. So and that's just for knives and forks and cutlery and things that will rattle around a little bit. So, and then I've used these camper latches which press in. There you see the Alpicool fridge. Now this is a lot larger than most people put in camper vans and even caravans. Caravan ones tend to be only about this tall, whereas that little extra height makes all the difference as far as I'm concerned. So if we have a quick look inside, and it's controlled by Bluetooth, so I can just turn it on or off via my phone, which is really quite handy. And then inside you can actually get 10 cans of Coke or Pepsi, whatever you prefer. I've taken the fridge part. The fridge part it just removes. You can just pull it out and remove it. So I've taken it out to make the entire fridge compartment a fridge rather than a separate fridge freezer. It was fine as a fridge freezer, but I didn't find I actually needed the freezer part. So doing what I've done here gives me a lot more room for normal big bottles of milk and stuff like that can actually stand on the shelf. Salad goes in there. It's a proper size. Well, it's not a proper size. It's not a kitchen fridge size, but it's a good size fridge. You can get lots of beers, lots of wine, sandwiches, all sorts of salad stuff. Everything can go in there, and that's terrific. But it's great. I'm really pleased with the fridge. It gets cold quite quickly. Give it a couple of hours and it's cold. In fact, probably more like an hour. It gives you a display on the front which tells you what the temperature is in the moment. Inside it's 6 because I only just turned it on. So that's the fridge. Really pleased with that. So once again, the cushions, the side, the ceiling. I've used these vinyl, they're quite stiff vinyl dots to sort of hide all the screws. They're only really down that one side. There's not many on the other side, and it all fits reasonably well. There's a seam along the middle, so I've done the ceiling in 2 parts, a front and a rear. As you can see, the back doors, I've not really done a lot with them. I've carpeted the card, and I've added little baskets to either door just for stowage, stuff like that. As you will remember from the other video, if you lift the cushion up, you can lift the lid, and in there it's full of coats and bits and pieces like that. These cushions and these back bits all slot together to form a continuous platform across the back here. and possibly I'll show you that now. So with the table lowered and then sort of laying on the two runners on the benches, you can see we've now got it in a sort of a flattened position. If we take the rear cushions, or the backrest cushions, they fit. I've not actually tested these, so I'm hoping they fit like that. And then there is a third cushion that I didn't bother piping. I just made it just to make it simple, because it's probably going to live in the storage locker most of the time. And actually it's lifting up a little bit where it's just a little bit too big, but when it's got some weight on it, it'll lie flat. Now the idea is that if I really do get caught short, I should be able to lie on this. So as you can see, this is with it folded down flat. I'm just going to try and see if I can actually fit on it. So it's now set up as sort of a bed. If you're a short person, it would be a little easier. So in theory, as you can see, you could sleep on it at a sort of a diagonal. So it's and you can actually have your legs straight if it's diagonal. If you go sideways on, then you've just got to have your legs bent. But yes, you can sleep in it if you really had to, but that was not the intention. When I took the rear bulkhead out, the top section of the rear bulkhead out, the seat backs were not upholstered, and that was a bit of a shame. So Citroen had saved themselves a couple of pence by not upholstering the seats completely. This left me with a bit of a problem. Either leave the bulkhead in place, which I was intending to, and I'd even bought some perspex to glaze the window, but once I took the bulkhead out, I actually quite like the openness in the back. And as you'll see, the van actually came with a rear view mirror, which seemed a bit of an odd thing because there was no vision through the bulkhead to the back. But now the bulkhead's missing, the rear view mirror actually now matches the doors and the wipers and the heated rear windows. But it gave me a problem because the seats were now open at the back, and that didn't look right. So I bought some covers, and I had a great deal of fun fitting the flipping things because there's no instructions, but they are actually quite nice, I think, and they look fairly good. Well, I think they do, and they've free of charge embroidered a nice little bit in the middle for me. Unfortunately, the embroidery was a bit too low, and when you fit the fold up table section, it blocks it out, so that just says the devil, but never mind, that's pretty good anyway. So as you can see, I'm quite happy with that, and that's made the interior really nice, and the yellow keys in to the yellow in the back a little bit. So there we go. So that's that bit. Right, so what I'll do now you've seen the sort of the living layout of the van, I'm going to set it up for transporting a model, and you'll see how that all goes together. So to get the van ready for transporting models, we'll sort the cushions out. This left panel here, I think I can probably pop these in. Cushion back on. And I'll leave the table like that. I think that's probably the easiest way to do it. At the front, you'll see that, looking across the van, I've fitted the poles that go across the sides of the van in these clips, which are nice and snug, and they mean that the two transporting poles are stowed safely for when driving. Here's the other side of the poles. I'll just position those down there for now, and the other one. And the poles are simply fitted into the straps, into the hoops. Like that. I have 3 of these shelves. This is the one I just removed from the front, so you sort of stowed. They're notched, so that they sit on the runners like this, and I can slide them from one side to the other. So I'll leave it like that for the moment. For transporting the models, I have a frame, and I make a frame for each one of the models that I own. These are the frames for WP971. They're actually labelled, just couldn't see it. And this one has an A and an A, so that corner goes to that one. I've made them flat packable, just for storage in the garage and what have you. So if we then put a model in there, you'll see. The tyre up at the front of the tray is a releasable unit, and you just lock it off, and it stops the tray from sliding around when you're driving. For the wings, they velcro themselves together. I made these frames, and it's just plywood. It's 12mm plywood with some arms and some routing foot channels. It's probably easy to see on this side. And then I've used these coach bolts and wing nuts so that I can alter the tension. And these, I'll try and get them the right way around. And these are a bit snug, these ones, but I deliberately wanted them a bit snug. Now I'll only do this one end, you get the idea. I don't need to attach the other end, but the other end is exactly the same. It's another frame, exactly the same as the first one. These arms, you can position them, you can slide them together, apart, make them wider, whatever. You can alter the angles that they hang at. Some of the Velcro's got stuck together while it was lying in the garage. Turn that down the right way. Okay. And you can see that between each section there is a loop of Velcro. And this loop of Velcro you can alter simply by removing or peeling the Velcro off and then repositioning it at whatever height you want. Come down as low as you want. If it was a quarter scale chipmunk wing or something like that, you have to go a bit further. Unroll. This is the extra Velcro that's on the side, and then run it up and over the top, out the way. And then that way you can make different sized hoops for fitting the different sized wings. And then you simply close them together to trap the wing nice and tightly, maybe this one. Trap the wing nice and snug, and then you just whiz the wing nut up. And that's your wing storage sorted out. Move that one. And there's room in the model in the van for 3 of these shelves, and I've made 2 of them already. The third one I've made the components, but I haven't got any more T-trim, so I've not been able to finish it off. But you get the idea. And then the area under here, if I put the cushions back in that are in the box, I can rest models on there, or wings, or smaller items or stuff like that if I need to. And then the area underneath the table is also free for firing bits and pieces like the tent and chairs and all sorts of stuff that you need for your usual camping. The area at the front of the table between the fridge and here is a nice flat area that I've deliberately left fairly open, and the idea of that is that's where the solar panel suitcase will live, well, not live, but will be when it's transported, and various other bits and pieces. I have a camping table and various bits and pieces, food crates and stuff like that. That'll all get stacked down there, that then goes into the tent once you arrive on site. So there you go. I'm really quite pleased with that. I think it's going to work really well. So there we have it, modelers. That's the end of that little project, well, the end of that project for now, and I really look forward to taking the van off for weekends and fly-ins and stuff next year, which will be great. It's also big enough that I can now accommodate the quarter scale models that I seem to be moving towards, which is perfect. As you know, I'm doing the quarter scale Chipmunk, and I hopefully will do a second one so that I have two, one practice model, one genuine model, and the van is designed around transporting the two quarter scale models and maybe a practice model as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this little mini project, and it hasn't put you off the channel completely. We'll get back to some aero modelling and some detailing. That's what I really am missing at the moment. So once that's all out of the way, we'll get back into the workshop, we'll start looking at the Chipmunk, and we'll crack on with that. Okay, again, if you've enjoyed this, please click like and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you on the next video.